I can't believe I'm saying this. Lou Gramm, welcome to the program.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Man, it's truly an honor to have you on my channel. I mean, wow, thanks so much for coming on. You're genuinely, as you can see behind me, you're a hero of mine. For me, you're one of the greatest rock vocalists in
Awesome.
history.
Thank you very much for the compliment.
No problem. Your voice is just so unique. I read your book, Jukebox Hero, and I absolutely loved it. I think it's a fantastic read for any fan of you, any fan of Foreigner, any fan of music in general. Now, I did make a video saying the current band should retire, but we'll get to that in a second. Just going back, I suppose, to the Black Sheep days, you sign an initial deal with Chrysalis Records. You move to Capitol Records, releasing 2 albums between 74 and 75, and from that you get a guest spot opening for Kiss. What I found fascinating in the book was on the first show with Kiss, you guys got the Kiss crowd begged for an encore from Black Sheep. You guys must have smashed it at that gig for an encore. It's unheard of for an opening act.
Yeah, especially opening for Kiss.
Absolutely.
I mean, we were stunned. We didn't realize that was happening, and then we turned to the head of Kiss's crew and asked him, what should we do? Should we answer the encore or just get off the stage? And he says, no. He says, it's great you got an encore. He says, go play another song. And you know what? Most headliners don't do that. You know, they just want you to get off the stage.
Yeah. It really stuck out to me in the book. Everyone wants, you're the warm-up act, and then, generally you just want the main act to come on, and you guys are getting begged for an encore. That was absolutely incredible. After that gig, as I was reading in the book, you guys go home for Christmas. The truck carrying your kit slides off the road on the winter ice, effectively ruining your chance with Kiss, the instruments themselves, and ultimately in a band in its infancy that can't replace the instruments, ruining the band's chances itself. We'll get to Foreigner, but in some ways, I took from the book and from what you put in it that Black Sheep was the band that always truly had your heart, even to this day. Am I picking that up right?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I think the songs and the style of the band and the topics of the songs and the way they were written. Bruce Turgan and I were writing most of the songs with some help from Don Mancuso or Larry Crozier, the guitar player and the keyboard player. But I really enjoyed writing the songs, and the way they turned out were I thought for the band that we were, right in the pocket for us, and they spoke to who we were as a band.
Absolutely. It's great stuff. Following that, your mother gets a call from none other than Mick Jones, your future bandmate and writing partner. You had passed him the Black Sheep album, which he listened to and called you up for an audition in NYC. And when you went to that, I was kind of laughing out loud when I was reading the book, drinking a cup of tea. You were traveling from your hometown of Rochester to New York to do the audition, and you had a couple of t-shirts and just a couple of pairs of underpants with you. I love that thought of a young man just going to New York for this audition of his life with 2 pairs of underpants in a bag. That's so funny.
Yeah, it was like a small gym bag, and I thought I would be auditioning and maybe staying the night and flying home the next day.
Yeah.
I ended up being there over 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, writing new songs with Mick. And every other day I'd have to hand wash my t-shirts and socks and underwear and hang them out to dry in the hotel room.
Yeah, I love that. It's so cool. You're on the brink of something so big, and you're the hotel room and the gear bag. I love that. Right. So you're in the band. It's called Foreigners. We know 3 Brits, 3 Americans. You, Mick, Ed, Dennis, Ian, and Al. The self-titled album was released in 77. It's a smash hit right out of the gate. We all know the big hits. Feels Like a First Time, Cold as Ice, Long, Long Way From Home. They all crushed the charts. That same month, AC/DC released Let There Be Rock. And the month before it, Fleetwood Mac released the album Rumours, which was a classic. But for me, though, you guys had something, really special and fresh that I felt they didn't have with them records. Foreigner didn't sound like anything else at that time. Were you getting that feeling in that moment yourself?
Um, I did, because as we were crafting the songs and then recording them and arranging them and then recording them, I felt, it was probably more just me feeling proud of the songs we had written and how the recordings turned out, but it felt special to me. And believe me, I was an AC/DC fan and I was a Fleetwood fan, and I think their songwriting and performances were always stellar. I think I was just excited because we were new, and
Yeah.
no one had any preconceptions about the band or what we should sound like or anything. No one had a clue, and we just came out.
Yeah, and that's why I went back and kind of listened to the records that were released around you in the same couple of months, because I just wanted to, you could really sound how fresh and hungry Foreigner were at that point. It was just, it really stood out to me. They were, them bands, okay, fine, Fleetwood Mac have been around a few years, obviously, but you guys just sounded so fresh. It was incredible. The next year, 78, Double Vision comes out and cracks the top 3 in the charts. Now, look, again, everyone knows the big hits. Everyone always asks you in interviews about the big hits. I don't want to go down that road necessarily, Hot Blooded, Double Vision, Blue Morning, Blue Day. But I just want to call out the final song. I think a final song on an album should always leave you wanting more. And that mellow track, Spellbinder, from Double Vision, did that. It just made me wanting to listen to the more. When's the next Foreigner record coming out? I'm curious, did you guys put a lot of work into what the track listing would be? And is that intentional to leave a mellow track like that Spellbinder at the end?
It was, and we all, as the album progressed and was recorded and then mixed, we always worked on the running order. We certainly wanted the first song to have a lot of punch and to pull you in. Because albums had 2 sides, the last song on the first side had to be striking enough to make you want to turn the album over and play the second side.
Yeah.
And then you're right. The last song had to leave you with a feeling that made you want to hear more.
Absolutely, and it really did with that mellow track. I think sometimes you might end with a belter, sometimes you end with a more mellow song, and it just feels right for the moment, and that definitely felt right on that record. Next up is the third album in as many years, Head Games. Now, I know you guys ran into some controversial trouble with the sleeve cover. Get that. It was a storm in the teacup, in my opinion. And you mentioned you weren't overly satisfied though with the in the book about the production of that record. I'm just curious, as a fan of that record myself, what were your problems with
it? It sounded unfinished to me, and I think it did to Mick too. I don't think there was enough time taken in the arrangements. And it seemed like we were being rushed to record it and get it done. There were very few embellishments, and I'm not talking about frills. I'm talking about basic things that would make the song stand out. And it just felt unfinished to me, and I think there was some of the feeling I was getting is because Roy Thomas Baker had so many upcoming recordings that he was producing that he had a real tight schedule, and he could only work on people's albums for a certain amount of time, and then he was gone.
Right.
So we were trying to fit everything that we would want out of an album that we had out of our first 2 albums into a limited time span, and we just couldn't get it done the way we wanted to get it done, and then he was gone, and it was mastered and put out, and it's not that it sounded bad. It's a strong album, but it to me, it just could have been better.
I get you. The album's title track, Head Games, is one of my favorite songs of all time. I love it. I'm curious, are you familiar with the TV show, the Netflix TV show Cobra Kai, by any chance?
What's it called?
Cobra Kai, the
Yes.
the Karate Kid spin-off series.
Yep.
They used the song Head Games in the first episode of that show, and it blew my mind, Lou. I was fist pumping on the couch just watching it. It was a driving scene,
Wow.
and your vocal is blaring through his speaker. It was just so cool hearing Head Games. Cool. Yeah, really, really cool, man.
Daylight.
So there were problems with the album cover and the song "Dirty White Boy."
Yeah.
I think it was WBCN in Boston banned the album from the airwaves because of the album cover, which they thought was suggestive and rude.
Mm.
Not yeah, there's rock and roll covers, but that one they thought crossed the line and was a little on the sick side. So
yeah.
So they banned the album from the airwaves on their radio station, and I know that a couple of other stations in the Boston area followed suit.
Mm.
And I think the other thing was that some city, I'm not quite sure which one it was, banned the song "Dirty White Boy" for being suggestive and dirty white boy. They thought it was I'm trying to find the words that not suitable because of it's
the suggestive.
Yeah. And so I remember seeing on the news that in that certain city, people being led by a church were burning not only the Head Games album but all the Foreigner albums. There was a big bonfire, and we were ostracized, and we didn't get airplay from that whole area of the U.S.
Yeah, it seemed like, even, I wasn't around in them days, but it did seem like overkill. I mean, in terms of, outrage, there was a lot worse that had been done. Didn't John Lennon have a lot of his albums burned as well? The Beatles, I mean, people get outraged all the time over these things.
It didn't warrant the action that they took.
I agree. Fully agree.
So between not quite being satisfied with the way the album turned out, and then having this thing in Boston and then in the Midwest happen, it really kind of staggered our momentum. And the album, I think, more or less was played out before it should have been.
I agree. Last question on Head Games for you. It's the last record with Ed before Rick Wills comes in.
Yes.
Where you and Mick, was Ed just not cutting it on bass for you guys at this point?
That's the reality of it. Yeah, I don't think it was his personality or anything. We like that a lot, but he overplayed, and he fancied himself a McCartney style bass player,
right?
But his playing, he's missing the basics of a bass player, and was a lot of extra frills, which we didn't need.
Yeah.
And we asked them, we talked to him about it, and asked him to play more simplistic and just stay on the bottom end where he belonged. You know, he could play around down there, but stay off the top part of his neck of his bass, and just anchor the band. And he just either he wouldn't do it or he couldn't do it. But it's at some point, which was really sad because we liked that a lot, we had to let him go.
Yeah, it stood out to me a bit because you mentioned in the book when he was told he was let go, he fainted. And
yes, he did, which made us feel even worse. You know?
Yeah, I can understand.
I mean, we talked to him enough about it. He fainted. I can't believe he didn't see it coming.
He was almost master of his own downfall in a way then. If he'd been given chances to rectify his playing, whether he could or couldn't, you know, as you said, there was nothing wrong with his personality. He was master of his own downfall and not falling in line with what the band leaders wanted him to do.
Yeah, and it wasn't like we were trying to crimp his style. We wanted him to anchor the band and keep the frills to a minimum.
Yeah, I get you. Right, then comes what I deem as an absolute masterpiece. I have it up here behind me. I play it at least once a week. Foreigner 4. Again, the band is scaled down here. Al and Ian are let go, and you're now down to a 4-piece. You, Mick, Rick, and Dennis. I remember Steve Perry saying, your counterpart, Steve Perry, saying, you and Steve Perry, by the way, are my favorite singers of all time. You, Steve Perry, and Jimmy Jameson are my favorite, period. I remember Steve Perry saying in recent years he wouldn't have got rid of the rhythm section, Steve Smith and Ross Valerie, for the Raised on Radio record like he did if he'd been given the chance to do it again. I'm curious, if you could go back to 4, would you and Mick still have done what you did with Ian and Al?
I'm not the type of guy that likes changing personnel or firing people. But I do remember that having a band meeting with the members of the band and letting them know that Head Games, while it had its merits, was we couldn't do another album like that again, where we put it out feeling that it wasn't finished. It would probably be the end of our careers in Foreigner, and that we had to be more creative, not be set in our ways as far as the way we played.
Yeah,
it seemed when Mick and I would talk, it would seem that a lot of the playing be from album to album had such the same style in it that it was almost the same parts.
I get you.
And we knew that after a Head Games, I wouldn't call it a failure, but it was a setback for sure. And we needed to put our hearts and everything into making this new album spectacular and leave no doubt to our audience and the world at large that we were a force to be reckoned with.
I get you. The logic is there for sure. You know, I was in the womb when 4 came out in June 81. I was born in December 81. And I think those classics, you know, they've been with me forever. They've been with me since just before I was born. You know, we've heard them on the radio from when I was inside my mother's tummy.
Were they fans?
They were, yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, 100% over this side of the world as well. You know, where you guys didn't. I know you gigged a bit, but not as much in the States. But Jukebox Hero, what an absolute belter! My wife and I during lockdown, we watched Foreigner's gig from 1981, and we had goosebumps. The hairs were standing up.
Which show was it? What city was it?
I can't remember the city. You were wearing the cut-off shirt, of course you were, but it was the one with the piano on it, the green, and you had kind of a white
Oh yeah,
strip going
yeah.
down it. We had goosebumps watching you perform the whole show, but not just that. Jukebox Hero. You leave everything out on stage on that song and on the record. I'm curious, do you enjoy singing it, or is it hard work?
Oh, I really do. It's as it gets towards the end, that killer high note takes every last piece of me I have to give, and if we play a number of shows close to the, at a certain point I can't hit that note anymore.
Mm.
I might be too spent, and after 2 or 3 days rest, then the next show I can hit it again. But it's difficult, and it's increasingly difficult as I get older.
Lou, to be fair, there's a lot of singers who are in their 20s now that couldn't hit that kind of note even now in their 20s. You were a genius, to be fair. So I wouldn't beat yourself too much up over it now, to be fair. People in their prime can't sing like that.
So I want to say that Mutt Lange, who co-produced that album with Mick, was how the vocal starts standing in the rain, very very low and kind of soft,
Yeah.
and then it builds and builds,
Yeah.
finally to the Jukebox Hero chorus.
Yeah.
He kept wanting the verse and the B section to be screaming high, and so the whole song would be one high end scream.
Yeah.
And I had to stop him. I says that's not the way the song is. I says it's structured to be dynamic, to start out soft and held back, and as the song progresses to get more dynamic and reckless, and then the chorus is balls to the wall.
Yeah.
And I says that's the way the song was written. I says I could scream from one end of the song to the other. I says, but it would be to the detriment of the song. I says the way it was written and the dynamics that are in it as it stands now are the way we want it.
I like how you stood up to Mutt Lange.
And he actually backed off.
Right. I don't imagine he's the kind of man to back off easily. So, you must have been pretty serious. I love that.
It was a moment, all right.
I love that. In every interview that everyone does with you, Lou, everyone goes, tell me about Waiting for a Girl Like You. Don't get me wrong, I love the song, but, everyone wants to talk about From 4, Waiting for a Girl Like You, Urgent, etc., etc. But I think people rarely ask you about some of the fantastic deep tracks from Foreigner 4. Songs like I'm Gonna Win, Girl on the Moon, and Don't Let Go are just outstanding. Do you have a favorite deep track from Foreigner 4?
I like I'm Gonna Win.
Oh, yes.
And I think Don't Let Go is very cool too. It's different. It's a little poppier than some of the others, but it still has a real punch to it.
Yeah. I adore your vocal of that last part of I'm Gonna Win. Oh, I paid a price. No more Mr. Nice. And then you've got Mick just playing over that. It's iconic. It's so cool.
I think that song was overshadowed by Jukebox Hero.
Me too.
I think if Jukebox Hero wasn't on that album, that would have been the big heavy hit,
Man, that would have been such a radio hit. Big time. a song that you mentioned it there, and I mentioned it as well. A song like "Don't Let Go." I just want to quote the opening verse if I can. Another long day, another long night. I try to make home before it gets light. I'm working hard so someday we can play. When I try to explain, you just push me away. I'm I'm curious. I did see in the book. Was that song almost self-biographical of you being out on the road a bit and not being home, but you were out working so someday you could have this home life? Was there a little bit of
Well,
semi-autobiographical in
there
there?
was a lot of it, but it wasn't just me. It was most of the people in the band,
Right,
particularly Mick and myself.
right. It's the missing home. You can really stands out from Don't Let Go. Again, another album closer, and just go. You just want more again. Just incredible. Sorry if I'm fanboying it here too much, Lou.
Oh no, no, I'm good. You're not laying it on thick. It's mostly about the performance in the song.
Absolutely. Last thing about Foreigner 4, can I just say your performance of Urgent at Farm Aid was spectacular. Spectacular. I mean,
At Farm Aid?
At Farm Aid, the performance of Urgent, oh, amazing. Amazing.
Thank you so much.
You belted that out. I've watched it tons of times.
You won't come down. You wanna live. You wanna move to the south. Got fire in your veins, burning hot. You don't feel the pain. Your desire is insane. You can't stop till you do it again.
I did make a video a few weeks ago of how infuriating it is that you guys didn't play. Journey and Survivor didn't play Live Aid. Now, why on earth did Geldof or Bill Graham not include you guys on that? You had a good working relationship with Bill Graham. What was his problem?
We had a great relationship with Bill Graham.
Why didn't he bring you into Live Aid then?
I don't understand it. Maybe it was Geldorf.
Mm.
I think his band and his style of music. I think he wanted to keep the old guard out.
Yeah. Well, he was wrong.
Well, he was wrong. Yeah.
He was wrong, and I'll tell him that if I ever see him here. He lives near me. Okay, 84 is Agent Provocateur. Now, in my opinion, you and Mick are the Lennon and McCartney of the 80s. That's for me. And maybe alongside, closely followed by Peter, Rick and Sullivan. But the cracks started showing with you and Mick. I could hear it. I could feel it from the book on I Want to Know What Love Is. I don't want to get too deep into the song. You get asked that question all the time. What I do want to ask you about it is, for me, Mick was out of order on the royalties piece with you. 95.5, that's an insult in my opinion.
It's such an insult. I mean, he should have been arrested.
Agreed. Yeah.
I mean, there's he must have been inebriated when he was thinking about it, because if he had any semblance of common sense, he'd see that I participated heavily in the way that song turned out.
Mm. I've seen other interviewers when you've said that skip over it and go, yeah, that's just rock and roll, whatever. That's how things go. It's a lesson for other people. I don't think that at all. I don't want to skirt over that. 95.5 was just, as I said, an insult. Your vocal performance alone even if you hadn't wrote a word of it, you should have got 50-50 for the vocal performance alone. That song's played hundreds of times a day.
I appreciate that. That's a mighty compliment. Do you know it didn't end up 95.5? It ended up 100% to nothing.
I saw that in the book. Yeah, absolutely. Just incredible.
Because of the that it went number one around the world, and that it did what it did sales wise and stuff. I think he got a $4 or $5 million extension on his publishing contract.
Mm.
And
there's a knock-on effect as well.
Yep.
Mm.
And I felt more than slighted. I felt like my partner had betrayed me.
Mm.
My writing partner, that we had written so many great songs, and that I never complained about the split. I always thought the splits were very fair, and most of those songs that we did together, some of them were 50-50, but I could see that most of them he put, because it was initially his idea that I would always write down 60-40,
Yeah.
or something like that. And but to take an opportunity where you knew the song was going to be meaningful, and hope that it would be a big hit, at least in this country, let alone around the world.
Yeah.
And to diminish my input to the point where I was insulted, and told him that he might as well take it all. And he didn't hesitate to do that.
It's a scandal.
It just, I felt our partnership and our friendship was just a tool for him.
Yeah.
And that really was the end of our writing partnership and our friendship as it had been. It was the end.
I get you. In my opinion, as I was reading it after that part of the book, I started to get it in my own head that, again, this is my opinion, that Mick never really praised you for the contribution that you made to this band. For me, I don't think, Lou, he 100% realized the diamond he had in you. I don't think he got it, or didn't clock with him.
Do you know, and I want to know what love is, when the choir came in, he worked with the choir on the choir parts, and the lead vocal hadn't even been done yet. So I took another engineer and went into the studio right next door to the one we were working at. I sang the whole song without any input from him and presented it to him. And he quickly listened to it. He says, "Yeah, that's nice." And then went back to the choir.
Yeah, that story. Yeah, I can't get it into my head as to how you couldn't appreciate what you had in your locker, what he had in his locker with you, a writing partner, a friend, one of the best vocalists of all time, and to treat you in that way is just, as I said, it's a scandal in my opinion. You moved on to Inside Information. Now, you mentioned in the book that your heart wasn't in that, obviously, for what we've just talked about, that, your soul's gone out of it a bit because you're not, the creative outlet isn't there for you. In your head, you're a gun for hire at this point. As a fan, you couldn't tell going from one album to the other with your vocal performance that you were pissed off.
I didn't spend a lot of time singing those songs. I ran through them a few times and let Mick pick the best parts that he wanted to hear on the record. But I didn't. I hardly had any writing credits on that album because I didn't want to create anything with him. There were a few songs that we wrote together, but I don't even remember being emotionally invested in those. I was going through the motions, and I made no bones about it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm kind of saying as well. That's what was going on in your head. But as a fan, you couldn't tell from the record. I couldn't anyway, in terms of it. But yeah, look, but say you will. Your performance on that is just outstanding. We won't go into the ballad, that ballad, and it's not as good as the other ballads. All right, so February 87, you release your first solo record, Ready or Not, and it's a commercial success. Gets in. Excellent. The title of the album, was that self-aware, as in it's kind of now or never for Lou Gramm on his own, Ready or Not?
Yes, it was. In every aspect that the words mean, it was that.
Yeah. Midnight Blues, the most played song on US radio that year, and you can, as I'm reading the pages of your book, you can feel the delight that you get from that being so well played and received by the public, that you did it without Mick. I could really tell that from the book. You described it so well. The shackles of Foreigner were off sonically and creatively. Now you could just do what you want.
Yes, and it's a little known fact that Bruce Turgan, my bass player and eventually a bass player in Foreigner, and I wrote Midnight Blue, who wrote most of the songs on that first solo album, and I remember when I wasn't sure if I was going to do a solo album, and it seemed that Foreigner was getting ready to go into the studio again. I brought that song and brought Bruce with me to talk to Mick and play him the demo of it. And he heard it and he picked up his guitar and tried to play the opening chords, which have a particular voicing to them and fingering, and I mean you can't just pick it up and play it. You got to figure out what it is before you can play it.
Yeah.
And so he tried playing it and it didn't sound right, and Bruce played it for him, and then showed him the fingering of the chords.
Yep.
Because they were uniquely different, and he Mick got it, of course, because he's so good at that stuff. But then tried to turn it into his own chords, and then put his guitar down and said, "It's a nice song. I don't think it's for us."
He was wrong.
Where was he wrong?
Absolutely. I read that in the book and I was rolling my eyes. You mentioned Bruce Turgan. He comes in from the Black Sheep days. Your brother Ben is on drums on that album, and your dad plays trumpet. I mean, how cool is that?
It's very cool.
Love that. It was so cool. Just a couple of songs I want to call out from that album, a couple of deep tracks. Track 5, If You Don't Have Me, and track 8, Until I Make You Mine. Absolutely class. Just brilliant stuff.
Thank you.
One quick one I was curious about on that album, you wore a coat. It was very similar to the Foreigner first album, the coats you wore on that album. Was that a nod or just coincidence?
Just coincidence.
Okay, right. I wasn't sure. Long Hard Look, another solo album. Again, your brother and Bruce are here with you, and your future Shadow King bandmate Vivian Campbell. Overall, were you happy with that second solo album?
Not as much as the first one. We had Peter Wolf, not Jay Giles, Peter Wolf, but Peter Wolf, the Austrian keyboard player and producer.
Yeah,
was involved with that as a producer, and he had a different slant on what he thought the album should be, and what the overall sound should be, and it sounded a little too pop for me.
Yeah,
and some of the sounds were overly commercial sounds that you had heard on a lot of different albums before.
Right.
And it's a good album, and there's some very good songs on it, but the overall effect I was not happy with. And Atlantic Records, even though the first single, which I really liked, Just Between You and Me, was a bona fide hit. Atlantic Records did not get behind it, was not doing their promotional job on that, and I had heard rumors that Mick and the president of Atlantic and Ahmet Ertegun, the chairman of Warner's, sat down, and Mick said, if this album is as big a hit as his first album, that'll be the end of Foreigner.
Yeah, it's politics like any element of business or life, isn't it?
So suddenly I felt the bottom drop out of our promotion,
Yeah,
and the second single after Just Between You and Me, I didn't feel any promotion or any push to get airplay or anything. They just set the rest of the album adrift, and
yeah,
after the second single, it was over.
yeah. I really like the album. Actually, to be quite honest, and I'll call out a couple of other deep tracks for anyone who wants to listen to them. Track 7, Warmest Rising Sun, and track
Yes,
9,
yep,
I'll know when it's over. I mean, the
yes,
guitar
yes.
on that is just killer
Yep.
guitar on that.
I like Day One also.
Oh yeah, excellent. Then comes Shadow King in 1991. Cool project, cool rock sound. Bruce and Vivian come with you after a long hard look. My question is, why not do another solo record? Although I think you've just answered that. I suppose you fancied getting back into a band situation, I guess.
And Shadow King was not an inexpensive album to record. It was with Keith Olsen producing, who produced Double Vision, and I thought the songwriting and the performances on that album were exemplary.
Incredible.
And I thought the band had a cool vibe and a cool look. And quite honestly, there was no, as in zero, none support from Atlantic Records.
Yeah, I could see that from the book. I went back and watched some archive interviews with you and Vivian, and you could see you guys were excited for that project. It's a shame because it was a harder kind of. You were almost. Vivian was dragging that harder side out of you, and you were bringing him a little bit more in. You were meeting in the middle somewhere, and it was just such a cool harder sound.
Vic did some songwriting too, and contributed to Bruce and I's song projects, and it had a real tough, hard attitude and musical attitude to it, and I thought it was also very listenable too. It wasn't so hard that it was no melody and just buzzy guitars. It was hard in a tough way, and the topics and the melodies and stuff were ultimately very listenable. And I think with even just a minimum of help from the record company, it could have been a very, very big, very strong album. And we got no help at all.
Agree. I'll call out a few album tracks on that as well. Track 5, Boy, and track 8, Danger in the Dance of Love. Insane. So cool. Love it. Great rock. Just great rock tunes.
I like Once Upon a Time too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, brilliant. We go on all day. The same year, you guys released that. Foreigner released their only album without you to that point with Johnny Edwards. I've always wondered, who's a good singer, by the way, but he's no Lou Gramm. I've always wondered, did you ever listen to that album and did you like it?
I listened to a couple cuts, and I didn't like it. I thought he had a good voice, but he seemed misplaced in that band.
I agree.
And I don't even think the songwriting was up to snuff.
I agree. I listened to it once. That was as far as
And we Shadow King played one show in England at the I can't think of the name of the place that we played, but it was one show, and it was awesome. We tore the house down, and then Vivian got an offer from Def Leppard, and he could see that as good as Shadow King was, as much as he enjoyed being part of it, that it was going nowhere. So he took the offer from Def Leppard, and that was the end of Shadow King.
Who could blame him in a way, I guess?
I don't blame him at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he stayed with the band long enough to see that Atlantic Records was not helping us at all, and there was no point of waiting around for something good to happen, because nothing was going to happen.
Yeah, it's a shame. You did return though for 1994's Mr. Moonlight. You and Mick got it together again. We all know the story of you met during the riots and all that kind of stuff.
And I really love that. I love that Mr. Moonlight album. I think it's a wonderful album musically, and it's sincere, and it's tough, and It speaks to me. I really enjoy the album, and we signed with another record company who didn't have the tools to promote the album, and it wasn't even in records. We would be touring. We'd go into local record stores, big ones, at the city that we were playing in, and we couldn't find a new album.
I have to say, White Lie is one of the best tunes Foreigner ever recorded. It's so good.
One of my favorite songs, period.
Oh, but we had it on in the car the other day. We were driving across Ireland, and I had the windows down. One little white lie. I love it. Absolutely, just so good. Dennis was gone.
It's very Beatlesque also.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you're right. Well, of course you're right. You wrote it. Dennis Elliott's now gone. He's gone off to do woodworking and all that kind of stuff. And your pal Bruce comes in for this record. Why did Rick Wills leave? Did you just want a different vibe on bass?
For that record?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he pretty much just had enough. He didn't enjoy touring anymore, and we thought maybe some new blood would perk things up.
Got it. Two more questions. I know Bob's hanging around there. I can hear you, Bob. I can see your shadow, Bob. You're a shadow king.
He's lurking.
He's lurking. I can see it. Two more questions, Bob, then I'm done, I promise, right?
Okay.
All right. Lou, the Rock Hall, you and Mick are in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. I made a video saying induct Foreigner into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Because it annoys me so much. If Journey can be inducted, surely Foreigner can be inducted. Get your shit together, Rock Hall.
I think it's less about whether we're qualified, and I think it might be more personal now. I know that at some point when a lot of our compatriots were being nominated and accepted into it, the bands and the artists that came up when we came up, that were inducted into the Rock Hall of Fame, and we were left out. I believe that our manager at that time and Mick went to see the head of the Rock Hall of Fame and had a discussion with him, which led to some heated words. And as that discussion ended, I don't know who might have been Jan Brenner from Rolling Stone magazine.
Of course, yep.
Who actually was a very good friend of Mick's.
Right.
I think he told Mick and our manager that it'll be a cold day in hell before Foreigner gets in the Rock Hall of Fame. That's the way it ended up.
Again,
and sure enough, I mean, I bet you 20 years has gone by since that.
Well, I don't care. I'll keep tagging the Rock Hall with my video until they do it. I get it. It's politics again. Going back to what we've already discussed. Last question. Last question for you. I made a video. So, okay, the current band. I saw Foreigner play a few months ago in Dublin, and my heart sank when no original members came out on stage and everyone cheered.
Mick wasn't there either, was he?
Well, Mick came out after 45 minutes for a few tunes, but for me, it was too late. It infuriated me as everyone cheered, because to me, it doesn't do justice to your legacy at all when there's no original members on the band. And certainly, Foreigner is not Foreigner without Lou Gramm, in my opinion. After that, I made the video, Foreigner Should Retire. It's just a tribute act at this point. As I said, Foreigner is not Foreigner without Lou Gramm. Where are you with Kelly Hansen and the current band in general, in your opinion?
No place. This was Mick's idea to have a new Foreigner, and he has had a new Foreigner. He has a new Foreigner. I mean, and they're all competent players and vocalists, whatever. But I don't understand what the attraction is from the audience standpoint. The only thing I could think of is that all or most of the fans that were loyal and fanatic fans from pre 2002 are now too old or not interested in attending Foreigner concerts, and they have a brand new audience which has no idea who the original Foreigners was, and is just thrilled that the band Foreigner is playing, and has no conception of if it's the real band or not.
I agree. Breaks my heart, to be honest with you. It's time for them to give it up, or else reduce your prices and charge tribute act prices, because that's all the band.
Honestly, I got an inkling of what they were making when the original band did shows with the current Foreigner, and it was easily 2.5 times more than the original Foreigner ever made on its most lucrative shows.
Insanity. I would say to anyone watching this, go out. Lou was back out on the road. I'll put some dates below. Bob mentioned to me earlier. Go and watch Lou Gramm, because that's who Foreigner really is, not Kelly Hansen, in my opinion. Go and see Lou, not that band. Lou, if you guys are ever over here, give me a shout. I'll bring Bob for a good pint of Guinness, and I know congratulations, your 30 years of sobriety. I'll get you a nice big glass of ice water for sure.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'll bring you out in Dublin. Lou, I'll finish with this. You're a big John Lennon fan, and talking to you is like my talking to John Lennon. Dream come true.
Thank you. What a compliment that is. Thank you.
Thanks so much. You're a humble guy, and I think you should be self-aware of how adored you are by fans all over the world. Lou Gramm, thanks for your time.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.